everyone, it's Miss Jenna again. This Trout Thursday, which actually didn't come out on Thursday, but that's okay. We're waiting for some internet so that we can make sure that it gets up online. It will be there. We're sorry about the delay. But for this week, what we're going to be talking about is kind of where our fish come from. The whole timeline and the trip that eggs that we get come to us, and then we have our fish and we grow them up and then release them. So a little bit about that, about the hatcheries that are involved, and then also about stocking streams and stream management. So are we ready to delve deep? Because here we go. Our trout take a trip across the entire United States. Yes, this is my United States. Deal with it. First, they start off in a hatchery all the way on the West Coast in California. In this hatchery in California, they have specifically chosen the Kamloops strain of rainbow trout. And this strain is chosen for a couple of reasons, which we'll get into then. But that's the specific type of rainbow trout that it is. Then we have to decide, well, triploid versus a diploid trout. Now here's where it gets a little bit weird and why I keep calling all of our trout girls. Typically, most things are diploid. We're diploid, most fish are diploid, there's all sorts of animals are diploid. Then you do have some other weird genetics where all sorts of animals can be triploid, and other weird things like insects and bugs get really weird where their chromosomes are actually H's and not even X's and Y's. So when we think about a typical diploid creature though, it has two sets of chromosomes, right? One that it gets from the mom and one that it gets from the dad. And so if you have an XY, that would be a male. And if you have an XX, that's your female. So what happens then with humans is basically your father decides which chromosome you get. Your mother is giving you the X's in the beginning, and then your father either gives you a Y or an X. And that makes you either a boy or a girl. Now for triploid animals, such as our triploid fish, typically when the eggs get fertilized, they actually end up losing one of these chromosomes, which then either makes them male or female. With this though, there's actually a way that we can keep all three of these chromosomes here. So then you have either an XXY, which would be a male, or an XXX, which is your female. So why do we want a triploid female, and how do we make sure that we can have all three of those chromosomes? Well, there's a couple of ways. The two most common ways of making sure that we can keep these extra chromosomes is either by heat shocking the eggs or pressure treating the eggs, in which case then the extra X doesn't fall off. So again, typically during normal fertilization processes, that extra chromosome is going to go away. But if we heat shock or if we pressure treat, these X's stay, and now we have a triploid animal. Now, why do we want triploid female Kamloops strain? Well, one is size. The Kamloops strain, it gets pretty big. Also, female trout generally tend to grow bigger than male trout. A lot of animals that typically lay eggs, the females are usually larger, and that's because they have to have room to carry around those eggs. That's the same in turtles and even in birds of prey as well. The females are generally larger. Also, the growth rate. So this Kamloops strain actually grows really fast, and that's what most hatcheries want out of their fish, so that they grow fast. They don't have to keep them at the hatchery as long until they then put them into the streams. Because the longer you have to keep a fish and the longer that it takes a fish to grow, the more food you have to feed it. And food is time and money. So if we can get these animals to grow really fast so that we can stick them out in the streams, that's less time and money that it takes to get them to that size. Then also, specifically for the triploid aspect of it, is that triploid animals are then sterile. Okay, that means that they can't actually then have babies. So when we then put these triploid trout that are also rainbow trout, so they're non-native to Maryland, when we put them in our streamways, we don't want a regular diploid rainbow trout to be interbreeding with our native species of brook trout. And so if we have a sterile female fish that goes into our streams, we don't have to worry about any breeding happening at all. So kind of that fish population is contained. So here in California is where our eggs begin their journey. The hatchery out there selects, this strain, the triploids, everything like that. They have the eggs, and then the eggs get sent all the way over to us in Maryland, specifically into Hagerstown, Maryland, at the Albert Powell hatchery. At this point, our little eggies are going to stay at the hatchery for a little bit. They're actually going to sterilize the eggs. Even though in California, those eggs are guaranteed to be disease-free, in the state of Maryland, it's actually required that they treat the eggs again. And so what they do to sterilize them is they actually put iodine in, and that will help to kill any extra pests or diseases that they might have had in California, so that eventually when we release them here in Maryland, we don't spread that disease. So once they have been sterilized and they're ready to go, that hatchery then does either two things with the eggs that they get. And Albert Powell gets eggs both from kind of private places around and also from other hatcheries that are local too. And so what they do is they'll either give some to Trout in the Classroom volunteers, who will then deliver them to, say, us or the other schools involved, or Hagerstown hatchery also does stocking. So we'll talk about stocking in a minute. So once these eggs go from the Hagerstown hatchery and they get delivered to us by our wonderful Trout in the Classroom volunteers, they then are usually received sometime in the months of December, January, or February. We've actually gotten multiple shipments of eggs. We have our eggs from 2019 in December when we got them, right? They're now our big adult trout. And then we got another shipment in December, which are now our par girls that we have. And then today we actually just got another shipment of eggs, which we'll show you guys in a little bit. And so once they're here, we then keep them. They hatch out usually in a couple of days, and then they are raised to that kind of fingerling, right? Your finger, about the size of your finger, that fingerling size, and then released in an appropriate stream that DNR says that we should release them in. So again, we're using Trout in the Classroom for many different reasons. To kind of educate about cold water streams and the watershed and why it's important to keep the water healthy, not make it polluted, about trout as indicator species. But then the overall goal of the hatchery and the overall goal of putting these fish into the waters is then to fish them, right? So that's what stocking is. So the other aspect that the Albert Powell hatchery does is they breed fish specifically to stocked streams. And stocking means to take a fish that you've grown and put it into a specific stream with the given that it's going to be fished, okay? It's for recreational fishing. Now with recreational fishing, there's a couple of different kind of terms. There's put and take, and then there's catch and release. Your put and take is you're essentially putting the fish in a stream with the intent that someone who fishes for it is going to take it home, okay, and eat it. Then there's catch and release. Catch and release is when you put them in the stream, you're catching the fish, but then you have to release it back into the stream. So most stocking that takes place is for put and take. Now, just because you're fishing out of a put and take stream doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take the fish with you. But typically, if you catch a nice big fish, they're very tasty, so you're probably going to want to take it. And that's kind of what they're purposefully there for. They're for that fun enjoyment of going fishing, and catching a fish, that fight that you get from a fish on your line, and reeling in a nice big fish is just, it's fun. It's a special experience. And fishing is becoming more and more popular, especially during times of COVID when people are trying to get outside, right? So if we kind of put all of this stuff together, we have all of our hatcheries working together. We have our hatcheries both allowing individual schools and people to raise the eggs, but then also they're doing the big stocking. And I'll put up a link about all the areas that in Maryland that get stocked, and kind of when that stocking season occurs and when the best time to go fishing is, because now there's extra fish in the rivers. So that all encompasses then your stream management. So for your stream management, that is essentially you are protecting cold water streams both on private and public property. So if you think about it, there's streams everywhere in Maryland, right? There's streams all across the United States. Some of those streams are on public property where anybody can go. Some of them are on private property. If someone owns a couple of acres, they might have a stream that runs through their own personal property. So how can we make sure that we're protecting those streams so that we have these trout, we have this cold water ecosystem, we're protecting our watershed? How do we do that both on a private setting and in a public setting? And the easiest answer, at least for me to think about, is these three things: education, restoration, and protection. So the easiest thing, and the one that I'm most biased to, is of course the education. The more that people get educated about cold water management and just watersheds and nature in general, the more likely they are to kind of form a bond and understand the importance of protecting streams and even the forest, protecting habitat for animals. So the more people we can educate, the more people start to understand that, and then they start to get a deeper connection for, say, their stream on their property, and then they care enough that they want to protect it. Restoration comes in when typically, especially if you think about even our wetlands that we have here at Irvine Nature Center. Our wetlands were originally, way back, was a wetland area. There were vernal ponds, there was marshy areas. It was great. Well, eventually the property was in charge of a farmer. And so the farmer then, he decided, well, he can't have crops and pasture land in all this water. So he diverted the streams around so that he could have nice, big, square pasture land. So it's really neat. I'm actually going to draw it here on the whiteboard, because if you've ever been to Irvine, our building, we're not in Texas, but just pretend this is our square, okay? So, we have our building and everything here. Here's our little aviary, and here's our access road that goes down. So there are so many square-looking areas, especially if you look at our map, and that's because those used to be the farmers' fields. And then we now have trees that kind of demarcate around, because that's what's kind of grown up. So this is just our main property. Then we have our new property, our Bower property down here. So if you walk out through all of the woods that we have here, right? There's our aviary covered in woods. If you walk out and look, it's really cool because this is a big rectangle and it's pretty open. This is now a meadow that we've kind of let regrow. And then if you walk down the access road, you're coming out to another meadow. Now what's neat though is that there's a stream that wiggles its way down through here and then goes down around here. There's also a stream that comes right through here. And then there's another stream that comes through down here too. So the farmer had diverted stuff specifically so that that stream water would go around the edges, right? So we had a company come in and do a whole restoration process where now, even though the streams kind of still flow in about the same direction, we now have nice big vernal ponds. And then those ponds have now made this area between our meadows super marshy. and it's super marshy over here too. And it's been really neat seeing all this new kind of wetland habitat, because now we've gotten so many new animals, or more animals, moving in onto our property. So if someone realizes, oh, my property has been developed a lot and I want to fix it so that the wetland is back, the stream is better, all that kind of stuff, there are a lot of different companies that will come out and help you restore your part of the stream. And then last but not least, we of course have protection, and protection kind of encompasses everything. You can have protection where you have streams that go through parks, national parks, state parks, county parks, whatever, and those are generally protected. They're not going to be developed or anything like that. But then protection from, education, and then you have those people who have private property that have a stream, and then they educate themselves on knowing why it's important to protect it, and then they use restoration in order to bring it back to how it should be healthy and natural. And now guess what? Now it's protected for that generation because the people care about it. So it's pretty interesting, but again, it all comes back really to that education. So that's why even listening to me drone on today, hopefully you're learning a little bit something about how cool this is and how just everything is interconnected, right? So then, speaking of things being interconnected, we can then put all of this together and say you are super into fish, you're super into the environment, you want to work outside, you like animals, you like stomping around in the stream. Well, guess what? There is a career out there for you. So with our careers, there are so many different options when it comes to careers dealing with trout. So we're just going to go broad with trout. We're going to pick fish. Of course, generally, if you're into fish, you're also just into most natural things, whether it's other animals or the ecosystem. But specifically then with trout, there are so many different career opportunities for you, depending on then what you go to school for, what you're really interested in. So starting easy is something like field work, being an ecologist or a biologist, going out in the field, doing stream water surveys, tagging fish, collecting samples from fish to be able to tell their genetics, like all that super sciencey stuff where you're collecting data from the field and then running tests on it, or then sending it to another scientist that's going to sum all the data together and make a conclusion from it. You have things such as if you like nature, but you also kind of like people, or even if you're like me and you didn't immediately like talking to people all the time, but you like talking to people about something that you're passionate about, which is definitely me, then you can get into things such as being a park ranger, being a naturalist, being an informal educator or environmental educator, being even a tour guide. Maybe you super love going fishing on a certain stream in a national park. They have tour guides for that, where they will take groups of people out, give them a tour of the stream, explain the dynamics of the stream, and then even show people how to go fishing, fly fishing, all sorts of things like that. So there's even something like that you can kind of combine that love of nature and your love of your hobby of fishing, and you can make a career out of it. There's also getting into things like maybe you don't like to be outside as much, but you still enjoy nature, but you're super into graphic design and marketing. There's so many companies that need graphic design artists, need people to moderate their social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that kind of thing, to be able to, again, educate the public and get information out there. Then if you start to get into kind of liking that kind of law or civic duty and things like that, and you want to kind of be on a citizen council of some sort, you want to sit on a board and you want to fight for rules and regulations and laws to be passed, whether it's in your county or in your state, you can get into that as well. Or on another kind of law aspect, maybe you're super into wanting to make sure that things are protected and that justice is served, right? So you can then get into law enforcement with Department of Natural Resources, the Natural Resource Police, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, so many different things where those officers' jobs are to make sure that the environment is being taken care of. Everybody has their fishing license, has all their other licenses, that they're making sure that the fish are the correct size that they need to be, all the like bag limits and everything like that, and making sure that people can enjoy themselves while going fishing and hunting, but that also that conservation aspect is still being maintained. Well, maybe you like to work with your hands instead, and you like to build things. Well, there's a job for you in trout too, or in fishing. You can be a craftsman. You can make fishing equipment. You can make tackle. You could instead decide to just be an artist, right? If you really like to do art and you like fish, maybe you can paint sceneries and sell it. Maybe you do photography and you become a really well-known photographer for taking underwater pictures of fish. The possibilities are endless. Then of course you can get into more of your management and restoration stuff. So working at one of the hatcheries that we talked about, being in one of those environmental services position that helps to do restoration, being a caretaker, an animal caretaker, my other half of my job, right? So I like the fish good enough that I've been taking care of them, and so that's just another hobby that I have, is making sure that the fish are cared for and that they have the best life that they can while they're in our care. Or even other specific fishing organizations like Trout Unlimited, and getting into that, and again then doing more of that education and restoration and protection, all the things that Trout Unlimited does. Or maybe you really like kids and you just want to be a teacher, but you'd rather work in a school or maybe in a college. Well, formal education, you can now take your love of trout and your fish and kind of use them in a whole bunch of lessons and teach about cold water management and stream management and everything like that. That's only the tip of the iceberg. Pretty much with anything nature related, you can figure out a way to make a career choice that you're passionate about. Whether it is something working with the public, working in the field, working specifically with the animal or with the plant, working where maybe you don't want to go outside again and you want to just take pictures, you want to be a graphic design artist, you want to teach, all these other different things. There is definitely a career for you. You just gotta look. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put up a couple of resources that will help in case you're looking and want to research different career options and figuring out what kind of schooling you might need for those different career options.
So what temperature we got?
We're looking for 54. When we first opened up the box of eggs, they were right around 34. Yeah. So we got to slowly. We're bringing them up to our water temp, spring water temp. Yeah, wait till I get this done, and then while we're waiting for this close. This is simple. When you got about 500,000 eggs to do, it's a little more complex to do this procedure. I'm going to fish culture. I'm going to fish culture class. I was just telling Mike and some of the instructors there said acclimating eggs is not necessary. I've been doing it for 29 years. I'm not changing. I'm not going to take that chance. It's just something we've always done, and it works. So why change it? Yeah, I'm not. It's no reason to skip that just to save a few minutes.
You can get in there, Chuck, and talk. Give me some information.
Give me some lottery numbers.
Yeah, there you go.
I want some lottery numbers from him because I have no idea how he got his eggs. We had eggs ordered we had eggs scheduled, 60,000 eggs supposed to be here last Wednesday. We're still waiting on them. Maybe they'll show up hatched and we can just dump them right in the raceway. They're in Memphis. He said his went to Memphis. I said they probably right past ours. They're sending us another shipment next week.
Stay.
I'm just gonna tell her what my last name is.
Yeah, deeper.
Yeah. All right.
So tell me what you're doing now.
We're getting ready to dump them into the iodine, and it'll sit in the iodine for almost 10 minutes.
Okay.
They haven't been disinfected before.
They're disease free, but it's something that we're required to do as well, just to extra precaution.
5 ounces for 4 gallons.
I measure these eggs out. It's generally about a whole 1 row across the bottom is about the number.
And how many eggs is that if you do it that way?
It was around 125, 150 eggs.
Okay.
What's happening? Something's happening. Hold on. Okay, look. Can you guys see this? Oh, look at this. Look. Hold on. Can you see? Oh. Can you see it?
We're all the way at the bottom.
They're going to be at the very end.
Can you see it? Can you see it? Okay.
Oh, I see them coming out. Do you see
Oh,
them, kids?
there they are. Look at them. Yay! They're
There's
great.
2,000 there, give or take 1 or 2.
Did you say 2,000?
Yeah.
Did you see them?
Now when we do it,
Look, there you go. Hold on,
when we do it, we generally do 400,000 to 500,000 eggs
Oh my God.
at a time. Yeah.
You guys, that's 2,000 eggs in there. Do you see them? Brittany, can you see them?
Are you gonna use?
That's 2,000. Hey, third grade. Remember how we talked about that had the eye, the little black dot? Can you see them in there?
No, I'll just do it myself. And then I'm going to
That is amazing.
Oh my God, look, this one looks like it's going to hatch.
Hopefully not yet. Actually, yeah, that's not putting
Sorry,
the eggs on.
we are
No, no, no.
Sorry,
This is
I'm
great.
sorry.
No, this is great.
This is awesome. Can you guys see?
Look, he's videoing too.
Oh, wait, look, he's scooping. He's doing scoops. Yep. That's so awesome. I want a new job.
Just for a day or two.
No, I'm sorry. Can you see it now? Can you see it? Okay. Can you see it, Brittany? Yeah, I can see it.
Can third grade see?
So hi Jana.
Hello. Do you have something for me today?
Yes, I have somewhere between 125 and 150 rainbow trout eggs.
That's awesome. So we're going to go ahead and get them out and get them acclimated and put them in our little egg basket inside of our tank.
Cool.
Okay, so here is our tank, our 55-gallon tank with our little guys in it. You can see we have our egg baskets floating in there. We're actually going to be egg sitting a couple of eggs. If we open our cooler, here are our eggs from the hatchery that Tom and Jim brought in for us. So we're gonna take one of these out, open it up, and let's look at these little eggs. Look at those guys. So nice and orange. And then if you look carefully, all the little black dots, those are their little eyeballs. And if you look really carefully, some of them you can even see some of their veins and them wiggling a little bit, which is really cool. A little bit. So what we're gonna do is before we just dump them into our water there, we're going to acclimate them. So we have to figure out what temperature our eggs are at versus our tank is at, and then slowly take some tank water and put it in with our eggs so that they can get back up to that temperature they're supposed to be at. So we're not shocking them. So I'm just gonna put our little temperature probe in here and then hold that in. We're gonna see what the temperature, definitely a lot cooler than our tank. So those eggs are right around 48, 46, dropping some more. So we got some warming up to do before we stick them in. So if we take a look and move our thermometer up here, let's see what our tank changes it to. So get it in there. Give it some time to adjust. This morning I wrote down that it was 57-ish. Yeah, it's going back up now. So we're gonna have to bring these eggs up almost 10 degrees, yeah. There we go. So it's slowly raising. So what we're gonna do is we're going to take our nice little turkey baster here. Fill her up. And then just put a little bit in with our eggs, very gently. And we're gonna now let them sit for a little bit, and then we'll take the temperature again. All right, so we've been kind of exchanging water from our baby tank into our little egg cups, and we're just about there at 56.8, so we're really close to that, right around that 57 mark. This tank fluctuates anywhere between 55 and 59, so we should be good to go. We're gonna go ahead and put these guys in our egg baskets, and then the great thing about our plastic egg baskets is the little grate that they have on the bottom. It lines up the eggs perfectly so that we can take a picture and then print it out and literally put a dot on every single egg so we can count them. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and gently dump our eggs. Make sure we get all the stragglers. Yep, and there they are. I'm gonna just swish them around so they all go into a little groove. There we go. And again, those grooves make it nice and easy to count. And we're gonna do the same with our other ones right over here. And you can see we've moved our camera, so when you log on, you're now going to be looking down at our little eggs.
I'm kidding, you doing this from the line. I'll do it from the other one.
And now you can see we have our 55-gallon tank with our little par girls right here. Hi, and they're kind of coming over and checking out the eggs. So right now the eggs are nice and safe in the egg basket. When they hatch, they'll still be in the egg basket. These girls can't get to them. And then eventually, once we have to release the alvins from the egg basket, then once they get old enough, we'll have to set up some sort of divider here in our tank so that no one gets eaten. All right, so as always, we'll see you in 2 weeks for our next Trout Thursday video. If you have any questions, comments, anything at all, you just want to interact with me, make sure that you drop an email to our Trout in Classroom email address, and I'll be sure to include you in the next video. So until then, bye!